What's up, my wizards? It's Dev from SBMTG down there. We like magic, and it's the first deck tech of the Amonkhet Standard season. And you know what that means? The music's back.
Yo, I'm sorting through some heinous haters like a pooper scooper. I'm Jada's trying to take my life like a Koopa Trooper. I'm Double Mario, that mean I'm super. And I'm freaking dangerous like a Chupa Cabre. Got them all day like a Kanye, but I'm way better getting cheddar in Monterey. But Jack, you don't know, man. You got the show, man. You want roast beef? Well, I'm Arby's.
And some of you are like, yes, music. And some of you are like, oh, no, music. But you got past it, on to bigger, more important stuff. i.e. today's deck. I asked you a little while ago in the comments section what you'd rather see for the first deck of the season, a budget deck or a competitive deck. And you guys actually surprised me a little bit by saying competitive deck. Let's try and call this format again, right? But honestly, I don't think the last format was particularly difficult to call. But let's try again here with Green-Red Gods. Well, there's been a lot of talk on the internet so far about this deck this season. Just in the last week or so here, it's been picking up steam, and a lot of people have different builds of it. Even Zvi Malshevitz, a legendary Magic player, posted his build the other day. So this deck has been getting a little bit of traction, and people are posting good testing results. And the testing that I've done with the deck so far has been good enough to think that I think it has a chance to show up. The thing is, though, this deck is a little bit like Green-Black Constrictor in the last format, in that it's got like 3 or 4 key pieces that it has to play, and then the rest of the deck you can just do whatever you want with. So it's kind of hard to figure out the optimal build for the thing. I've seen energy builds for it that play like Voltaic Brawler, Attune with Ether, Bristling Hydra. Seems decent. I've seen Revolt builds that just try to play like Bloodrage Brawler, yes, on turn 2, like all of these builds do, but also try to get a turn 2 Green Will Liberator as quickly as possible to turn on Rhonas by turn 3. That way you have like 2 2-drops that can go ahead and turn on Rhonas, so no matter what you do turn 4, you can swing at least 9. All those builds seem at least decent, but I'm going to go today with the Madness build. I'm going to talk about why I think that is as we move through all the different cards here, obviously, but I'm going to start with one of the best reasons, the 4 copies of Bloodrage Brawler. Now, this is one of those key cards I was talking about. I haven't seen a build of this deck that doesn't play a playset of Bloodrage Brawler, and based on my testing, I don't know why you wouldn't, even in a deck that's not based around the Madness theme. Just to facilitate Hazoret, this is a decent 2-drop, and it's probably the best and most reliable way to get on board on turn 2 in the whole format. There's a lot of good turn sequences that this guy works with, you know. Turn 2 Bloodrage into turn 3 Rhonas is ridiculous. That's just ridiculous by itself. Doesn't matter what you play on turn 4. You're swinging 9, really 11 no matter what. Because even if you don't play a land or any other cards, you can at least pump up Bloodrage and then swing in for 11 damage. That's not bad at all. You can also play Bloodrage turn 2, discard an Honored Hydra, turn 3 Rhonas, turn 4 Hydra. That's pretty cool too, and you're still swinging for 9 in that case. And now you got a 6/6 up. I'll just finish up by saying that Bloodrage is insane because, again, we're used to 2-mana 4-power guys that we have to jump through some hoops for, and for this one, all we have to do is have a card in our hands. On turn 2, it's guaranteed to be a 2-mana 4/3. That's insane. So, along with Rhonas, he's like the entire reason to even build this deck. Bloodrage has been very, very impressive. Moving along here on the curve, though, we're going to play 4 copies of Noose Constrictor in the deck as well, because being able to discard all of our cards is pretty sweet, considering we've got to turn on Hazoret. So having the option to just turn on Hazoret whenever we want to is a pretty sweet deal. Also, if we go Noose Constrictor on turn 2, Rhonas turn 3, well, then we can just use our mana on turn 4 to make the Noose Constrictor a 4-power guy, swing in 9. That's not bad, at least 9. And if we don't want to spend any mana, we can also discard cards to make Noose Constrictor 4-power and turn on Rhonas. That's 3 amazing reasons, at least, to play Noose Constrictor. Not to mention that if you're playing against a naked board, your opponent has a slow start, whatever, the Noose Constrictor can just deal a bunch of damage super fast. Before we move on to the 3-drops on curve here, I'm going to stop off and just sneak in 1 copy of Lupine Prototype. Just 1. At first I was playing 3 copy of this guy, but he's just still not quite there at 3 copies, you know. I would like to just play the 1, though, because when you do get him in your opening hand or early in the game, he has some good turn sequences he plays into because he synergizes well with a couple of things that we're doing. Obviously, Hazoret he synergizes with because we want to go Hellbent or Heckbent, and when we're Hellbent, he's really, really good. We just swing for 5. That's pretty good. And with Rhonas, he automatically turns on Rhonas as your 2-drop. That's pretty cool, too. We're also playing Heart of Kiran in the deck. Sorry about that, but we are playing Heart of Kiran in the deck. But in any case, it's a competitive deck, you know. So he also can crew Heart of Kirin. So even if you've got a full hand, as long as you've got a Rhonas or a Heart, Lupine Prototype's got something to do. But after you play your Hazoret and you want to be empty on cards, basically, he's also awesome then. So I want to play Lupine Prototype in this deck, but I don't think it's worth it to play a bunch of copies. I'll just sneak in the one, and he's good when he's good. I've already mentioned it, and vehicles are basically creatures, so again, before I move on to 3-drops, I might as well tell you about the 3 of Heart of Kirin in the deck. First of all, I was a little surprised at the price drop on Heart of Kirin. It's like $11 or $12 on TCG Player right now. Last I checked, it was like $18 to $20. So that's pretty good. not bad. It's a little easier to play HOK at this point. But Heart of Kirin, I haven't seen it in a butt ton of these green-red lists, which really, really surprises me. Now, if you've just got a Noose Constrictor, instead of having to discard 2 cards to turn on Rhonas, we can just discard 1 card to turn on Rhonas. You know, discard a card, Noose Constrictor crews Heart of Kirin, suddenly Rhonas is on board. So that's another way to swing for 9, some of it in the air, some of it indestructible. That's awesome. There's just so many ways to crew Heart of Kirin in the deck. We're also playing a Planeswalker, another way that we can crew Heart of Kirin, but I just think there's no reason not to. If we can crew Heart of Kirin with a smaller guy, then we instantly turn on Rhonas. That's dope. So I just don't see a reason not to play the card. It always works for me. We're finally at the 3-drop slot, in which we're going to play the full playset of Rhonas, whose name I've already mentioned enough that if this were like a drinking game, you'd be blacked out. But I have to bring up Rhonas with every card that I mention because the deck is more or less built around turning on Rhonas as easily as possible. Everyone that's tested with this guy so far that I've seen, myself included, is really, really stoked on how powerful this guy is. Just the best way to get on board right alongside Bloodrage Brawler. I'm telling you, turn 2 Bloodrage, turn 3 Rhonas is definitely the best way to get on board in the whole format. It was formerly probably Toolcraft Exemplar into Heart of Kirin. Now this definitely rivals it, and that deck can't even really beat this start. You know, Bloodrage into Rhonas is just unbelievable. So, and even Noose Constrictor into Rhonas. We don't mind pitching a couple of cards to turn on Rhonas because we also want to turn on Hazoret in the 4 slot. Just the dude has been straight up impressive in playtesting so far, if I can be frank. And pretty much everyone I've seen online that has also tested this guy has more or less the same opinion. A lot of people are excited about Rhonas. There's a reason the whole deck is built around him. He's absolutely bonkers. Also at 3-drop, I'm just going to play 1 main deck copy of Manglehorn. And honestly, I'm thinking about bumping it up to 2 copies. I don't know what I'm going to take out, but bumping it up to 2 copies might not be the worst idea. I'm still seeing a lot of Heart of Kirin in testing. I'm seeing some Aetherworks Marvel in testing. And obviously, this busts up Saheeli combo because all of those Felidar Guardians that are being copied are artifacts. At this point in the just pre-season testing process, I have still seen a lot of Saheeli combo decks, so I want to pack at least the 1 main deck Manglehorn. And he kills artifacts, and you can pump him with a Rhonas to turn on Rhonas, so there's good reasons aside from that for just playing the 1. And he's so good right now and almost always finds a target that I wouldn't mind playing a second copy. Manglehorn is the truth. Moving on to the 4-drops here, I'm going to play 3 copies of Hazoret in the deck. Hazoret is just, again, ridiculous, especially in tandem with Rhonas. Even if you play Hazoret on turn 4 and you can't immediately swing with him, he will turn on your Rhonas at the very least, and you can swing for 5 indestructible. That's pretty cool. And if you top deck Hazoret at any point when you can play him, like you top deck Hazoret turn 7, he's pretty great to swing in with haste indestructible. That's dope. Also, if you can play Hazoret later on in the game, play Hazoret and still have mana to use his ability, that's also great. Note, by the way, that it's 2 damage to opponents, 2 damage to players, basically. So you can redirect that damage to a player to a Planeswalker they control, in this case, at instant speed, which is pretty good against Cat Combo. Hazoret is also really good reach in the late game, you know. If you can't finish off your opponent because they've gone wide, they can chump block all your guys, or maybe they've destroyed all your other dudes with removal, but they can't find the Grasp of Darkness for your Hazoret or something. This puts them on a clock that they will have to deal with at some point. Just super good ways of playing this guy. He's just got, he seems kind of limited in a lot of ways, but turning on Rhonas, providing reach, hitting Saheeli combo at instant speed, just coming down as a great top deck, just like, guy has a bunch of awesome play in this deck. I'm also going to play 3 copies of Honored Hydra in the deck, which isn't necessarily a 4-drop. We can Lightning Axe early in the game, or maybe Bloodrage Brawler on turn 2. Drop this in, and then we can play it not only turn 4, but turn 5, turn 6, turn 7. You know, if you've got something else that we want to play on turn 4, we can bypass Honored Hydra if we want to. You know, we want to play our Hazoret turn 4? Fine, whatever we want to do, you know. We can also discard Honored Hydra to Hazoret, which is also a decent play, you know? So just a lot of good stuff that we can do with Hydra. We've got enough ways of discarding in the deck that I don't just want to play Fiery Temper and call it a day. I think that playing a huge dude that turns on Rhonas, by the way, is a good choice. And to finish off the creatures, I'm just going to play 2 copies main deck of Glorybringer. I've seen a lot of people playing this card in the sideboard and just adding like 1 or 2 lands to the board, and then for mid-range matchups where you need to kill creatures more, you know, especially against Mardu Vehicles decks, Glorybringer can be fan-freaking-tastic. So I've seen people playing it in the sideboard, but I have liked it enough, it's given me enough action, that I'm going to devote 2 main deck slots to it. I do think it's that good. And you might balk. You might say, oh, you don't want to play 5-mana cards in this deck because, you know, Hazoret you have to have no cards or 1 card in your hand. Well, to that I say, you can still have 1 card in your hand. You know, even if you play Hazoret and Glorybringer is the last card in your hand, well, you can still swing with your Hazoret. Not bad. And next turn, you can play Glorybringer and swing with Hazoret and Glorybringer, kill one of their guys if you exert the bringer, you know, with haste. It's dope. And you can swing with like Rhonas, Bloodrage, whatever else you got. That's usually GG. If you play a Glorybringer on turn 5 after a Hazoret, maybe you got a Rhonas on board. There's just so much pressure that you can apply with this guy, you know. He's haste, swinging immediately. We got a bunch of haste dudes in this deck at the top of our curve. I don't know if you noticed, but that is good against control, and it's pretty decent against aggro a lot of the time because they're huge guys that outclass aggro's creatures. So just like, it's nice to have more haste, and especially that 4 damage. Just having basically a Flame Tongue Kavu that flies over with haste is unbelievable. The card is definitely good enough to play a couple of copies of, and we'll play more in the sideboard. I think that Glorybringer is absolutely the truth, and if you play, or if you talk to a bunch of the other people that have played this guy, tested him so far, they'll tell you the same thing. Glorybringer probably has a spot in this upcoming format, whether it's in the Boros or Naya Always Watching deck, which I almost did today. I think that deck has legs, or whether it's in this deck, either in the board or in the main deck. The card is just absolutely bonkers when played on curve. We're going to play 10 spells in the deck and call it a day, and we're going to start with Oath of Nissa, which we'll play 3 whole copies of. Now, I saw Oath of Nissa in a bunch of other people's lists before I actually had it in mind. I was not sold on Oath of Nissa because it replaces itself in our hand. If we have a 1-drop, I'd like for it to get a card out of our hand so that we can more easily enable Hazoret the turn that we play him. It's a little hard, I'm not going to lie. It's a little hard to enable Hazoret to swing on turn 4, but we don't necessarily need him to as long as we're enabling Rhonas to swing on the turn that we play Hazoret. So I'm not as worried about that, but I was worried about playing a 1-drop that replaces itself and doesn't necessarily contribute to the game plan of getting cards out of our hand. But after playing with Oath of Nissa, I was just playing 2 copies, decided to up it to 3 because it really helps us shore out our game plan on turns 2, 3, 4, you know. We really need to play good turn sequences on those critical turns in this deck. If we don't get our good cards basically on turns 2, 3, and 4, then we're in trouble. The deck relies a little bit on nut draws, if I'm to be honest with you, and Oath of Nissa on turn 1 really helps smooth that facet of the deck out. We're going to play 3 copies of Lightning Axe and 4 copies of Fiery Temper in the deck. Obviously, Fiery Temper is good with all the stuff that helps us discard cards, and Lightning Axe, hey, helps us discard Fiery Temper or Honored Hydra, or similarly, just get Hazoret to work as early as possible. Both of these burn spells stop cat combo, which is another important thing to do. Lightning Axe can target Felidar Guardian at instant speed, and obviously Fiery Temper can target Saheeli Rai. Well, it can target our opponent, and then we redirect the damage to Saheeli Rai at instant speed. So having 7 cards here, and Manglehorn as well, that can break up cat combo is very important, because even if we get an insane start, as long as we're like on the draw, we can easily die turn 4 to a billion cats. And to finish off the main deck, I'm going to play 2 copies of my pick for most improved player since Amonkhet came out, and that is, maybe surprisingly, Arlinn Kord. Now, I know we're pushing it a little bit at the 4-drop slot. It doesn't look like you want this many 4s in a deck that essentially wants to play Hazoret and swing with it as early as possible. Well, not necessarily. You can either play Hazoret turn 4 and then this turn 5, or even better, some of the time you can play Arlinn Kord turn 4, enabling your 2-drop to turn on Rhonas. And then turn 5, play Hazoret, swing with everything, and boost all of your guys with Arlinn's Anthem effect. Also, by the way, you can make a wolf with Arlinn, and then when she flips back over to that first side again, she can enable the wolf to turn on Rhonas, which has been an important situation a couple of times. Aside from that, she can crew Heart of Kiran. That's pretty sweet too. She can also like just keep making wolves all game and stuff against control decks. That's very important to have like a creature factory that never ends. She can bolt dudes. She can put her emblem out, and now whenever you play one of your huge monsters, it's just ridiculous. Like Arlinn just does everything. All 5 of her abilities are very, very good in this deck. No matter which side she's transformed to, she's doing some work for you. Seriously, try her out. But on to the lands. We're going to play 23 of them, and honestly, it's not rocket science. The energy builds I've seen play Ether Hub, but we don't have to. Aside from that, we can just play, the red-green duels and some basics. It's more or less it. Here's our sideboard right here. We're going to shore up the play set of Lightning Axe in the deck, because it's got a lot of good interactions, and it kills a bunch of good stuff. We're going to play 2 more Manglehorn, because we should. We're going to play 2 copies of Sweltering Suns. I have not seen this in other sideboards, but both of our gods and a lot of our creatures, Heart of Kieran, Noose Constrictor if we pump it up, Glorybringer, Honored Hydra, all of them survive Sweltering Suns. And if a deck gets a great start against us, or we're a little bit slow, Sweltering Suns can be a really good play to either wipe them off the board or keep them from crewing their vehicles. And we can always cycle it if we want to as well. Prowling Serpapart is also in the sideboard just against control decks. Again, I've seen a few of them pop up. Glorybringer we're going to play the other 2 copies of because it is just so crazy if we want to go mid-range. Same thing with Samut. A lot of people are not giving Samut a chance, but I like Samut against control again out of the sideboard. Control, we kind of have a bad matchup against, especially considering they have Essence Scatter now. Cast Out is pretty good against us, another card I keep seeing a lot. So having a lot of strategies against control I think will be kind of important. I think control might have a chance now. And Samut is just very, very good against control. The haste is good against control. The ability to drop it flash after they tap out is awesome too. So Samut's been great, and giving all of our other creatures haste is also pretty darn good against control. And she's awesome in conjunction with Prowling Serpapart. Let me point that out. Here's your power rankings right here. Final score of 66, which was a little bit higher before I got a few more games in. I actually took another day to test this deck out, and after playing a few more games against control, a few more games against Cat Combo, I feel like we were like 40-60 against Cat Combo, and game 1, that's for the match. Game 1, we're like 30-70 against Cat Combo. It's not a great game 1. In the matchup, we need to be able to shore up a little bit more. Against Mardu, we do fairly well, actually. I feel like that's a 50-50 match, but if they get one of their super legendary fast starts, and we don't get a very good start, Mardu can just come out of the gate and just crush us, especially if they get a timely unlicensed disintegration against anything but a god. That can actually be a problem because they can just strand Rhonas, that's an issue. Definitely a fair deck. We've got ways of shoring up the draws that we need to make, but if we don't make those draws, we're in trouble, and we're sort of one-track mind. We've got some removal in the deck, but if we don't get the turn sequences the way we need them to be in the early to mid-game, we can be in trouble. So we're not entirely versatile. That being said, we are supremely powerful. A lot of cards in this deck are very powerful. Both the gods we play are much better than you might think. The green god is the best god. I can say that right now. From what I've tested, the green god's the best god. Red god is amazing in this deck, specifically because the green god is in it. So even if you're not doing anything with Hazoret, he still enables Rhonas. That's dope. And we've got a bunch of great turn 2 plays like Noose Constrictor and Bloodrage Brawler to help enable both of those gods. So we've got a lot of good things to do, a lot of power in the deck, and a lot of synergy between Madness and Heckbent. So a lot of good stuff to do. And as far as just like, if you like playing the absolute best creature on curve every turn for that situation, this is the deck for you. Honestly, in this format, I think Bloodrage Brawler is the best thing on curve for turn 2 if you're just looking at sheer numbers. Same thing with Rhonas on turn 3. Sheer numbers, best thing you can possibly play. Turn 4, we've got Hazoret and Arlinn, and in this deck, Arlinn is probably the best thing you can play outside of Hazoret. Turn 5, we've got Glorybringer, and right now on curve, Glorybringer is one of the top 3 cards in the format on turn 5. I can say that for shiz unequivocally. So seriously, if you just like curving out and playing the best creatures every turn, this is for you. That's pretty much all I've got to say about this deck for right now, even though there's way more. A lot of people have tested this deck. I'm sure you'll see them in the comments section. But if you're not one of them and you're just interested in the deck, let me know how you feel about it. What do we not include? There are a lot of different, very malleable deck here. There's a lot of different ways to build it. So let me know what you'd put in. Let me know how you'd build it. And I am really interested to see all of those comments, because right now, this is probably the deck that people are putting the most energy into trying to tune, because it probably has the most promise for competitive play of everything we've seen so far in the preseason, at least. You should also like the video. If you enjoyed the video, just hit thumbs up. Follow me on Twitter at SBMTGDev and share my videos. Send me presents, and I will see you guys next time. I'm Dev from SBMTG. Thanks for watching, my wizards. Super exciting format coming up. I can feel it.